What happened?
Okay. Oh, Taylor. You ready for this?
Hurry up, Kevin. What are you doing?
What's up? Oh gosh, I just elbowed. And all the milk's gone.
Yeah, it's gone.
Yeah. And today we're talking about being a landlord and some pro tips. Right, Lauren?
Pro tips.
Yeah! Over here. You ready for this, Lauren? Welcome to Alexander's. How many in your party tonight?
Tip 1 is to screen your tenants properly.
How do you do that?
It's basically just all about credit and proving their income.
So what's the number one tool you use to screen?
Well, you figure out how to run their credit, and you have to make sure that they have good credit. Not just a good score, but also showing you have good credit.
A history of actually paying things on time. If you can't pay your AT&T bill on time, odds of you actually wanting to pay your rent on time or prioritizing your finances are often low.
A lot of people get really mad at me. They say that I'm discriminating against them. I have every legal right to ask about your credit and to check out your credit because, in a sense, if you're stealing from credit cards and not paying them, you could potentially steal from me in rent.
Oh yeah, if you have a bunch of collections, then it's obvious that you really don't value finances. So why would you value not only the condition of the property, but paying your rent on time?
Yeah, credit is the most important thing for screening, in my opinion.
The other thing now is if you mess up a house or ruin a house, you can get a judgment against you, and that shows up on your credit report. So if somebody goes in with good credit, the odds of them wanting to mess up and destroy their credit by messing up a house are very, very low. So they don't want to mess up the house and get a judgment against them, which is just another way of saying a one lawsuit because they messed up a house and now their credit's shot. Somebody who has a really good financial setup and great credit doesn't want to risk getting a judgment against them if they get sued for messing up a property.
Oh, yeah,
and then they ruin their finances.
Yeah.
So
they obviously try really hard to maintain a really great credit score and be an honest person, and they don't want to screw that up.
They gave us our own room. It's probably because I'm running around with the camera.
Let's put him in his own
Segregate them.
Yeah.
That guy is so...
So what I look for in a credit report, basically the ideal credit report is just a bunch of paid as agreed. I mean, you don't have to have much credit actually. It could just be 3 credit cards or 3 lines of credit, and they gotta show that it's paid as agreed. And you know, if you do see one time that it's late, you can also look specifically, were they 0 to 30 days late, were they 60 to 90 or whatever. If you have one person that's paid as agreed, paid as agreed, paid as agreed, a bunch of paid as agreed, and then they have one late and it's within the 0 to 30 range, it's like, okay, stuff happens. It's not like I'm looking for the best thing ever. We all are human and we make mistakes. So, but just, I mean, generally speaking, you just should see a bunch of paid as agreed.
And because of that, sometimes the score doesn't actually matter so much. The score is like an easy initial filter. If somebody has a 590, it's like there will be collections, right? But if somebody has a 690 and everything's paid as agreed, but it's a new credit line, okay, that's all right.
But to comment on that, Kevin, it's just too easy to get 700 now. It's almost like if you're below 700, you messed up at this point.
That's true. It's like it's just flagging you that something will be wrong.
There is one exception that I always kind of feel bad about for the individual person is if they have medical bills that they were unable to pay, and that's literally the sole thing in their whole credit report that is a derogatory aspect. If it shows that they were perfect everywhere else, medical bills in America, they can really, really add up and just take you down. And if you're trying really hard everywhere else in your life, I can kind of get past that. You know, a lot of people, they'll try and tell me, oh, well, I was in a terrible divorce or something happened to my family. It's like, I don't care. Sorry.
We do care and feel bad that you got divorced or you had a horrible thing happen to your family.
Yeah,
but
and that does happen.
If you messed up your credit, like, yeah,
it's like hopefully
sorry,
you were with somebody to where when you do have a divorce, and I've seen it happen time and time again, the two work together in not taking each other's credit down.
Right.
I mean, if
exactly.
you're responsible, you yourself and then your ex were responsible, it should be still okay.
If the couple highly values finances,
Yeah.
and unless there was like a major job loss or something like that, usually you can maintain good credit.
Another thing people will say is, oh, the recession really took me down and I couldn't handle anything, blah, 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 blah. And yeah, that sucks and that does happen. in, but I don't want to risk my property renting to you to potentially take me down.
That's so true. It's not to say that people don't have bad circumstances,
Things
but
happen.
that's why there are large apartment complexes like the ones Grant Cardone buys that have on-site property managers. The risk is so low because the units are like 1,000 square feet. They're easy to kind of blow and go, new paint job, new carpet, done, you're in. And they generally have lower credit standards because, quite frankly, the people with excellent credit oftentimes don't want to live in apartment complexes.
The people with excellent credit, they can truly cherry pick. And they are so desirable to landlords. They can take whatever they want because they have the income, they have the credit, so they get the best place.
So this is the Boyle McDonald Zinfandel from the Sierra foothills. Pulled the cork, what they would call the mother load. I smelled the cork, and it's in all of California. Oldest in California. They're ethyl acetate, amyl acetate. It disgusts me so much.
We just learned the actual reason they pour you a sample is not so you can request a refund if you don't like it. It's to see if there's like bacteria in the wine or something like that.
Amyl acetate.
We had
If it's
no
tasting
idea.
funky, yeah.
Not that we know anything about wine or we're going to send it back. It just kind of came up.
I always feel like it's super awkward when they pour you the wine and then they have you taste it and it's like, yeah, it's fine. Like, I have no idea what I'm tasting. It's like, yeah, it's A-okay to me, sure.
One for you, miss?
Credit is so important. I honestly think people think it's just like oh, let me just check this off the list item and forget credit. This guy's flashing cash. I'm all right with them giving me cash. They got money. They look good. I got a good vibe with these people.
Das ist a really bad idea. You should not do that. You are giving the tenant control of your property and your asset.
And you know, people go by things like, oh, well, their car's clean and they look clean cut and stuff like that. Come on. The people who have horrible credit and nobody's renting to them get their cars cleaned, wear clean clothes, and look like they got everything put together because they know their credit's shot and they know they got a bunch of unlawful detainers on their credit report. Which unlawful detainer is just a way of saying a landlord started the process of evicting them from a property. Happens all the time. We see it all the time. People who are the most well put together are oftentimes the ones without a job and going from rental to rental, screwing landlords. Hey Lauren, what do you think about people who just flash the cash?
I think that if the landlord is asking for a really high rental price and there is somebody flashing the cash, that person has something to hide. It's like, here, take my money, so much money, don't look me up though.
You won't need to screen me. You could just keep the credit check fee anyway, though. I'm so glad to be able to have the opportunity to rent from you.
Oh. And let's talk about gut feelings too. You need to run their credit and you need to verify income. Those are the two most important things. If you go based off gut and not run credit, you're really, really screwing yourself over. The only reason you should ever have a gut instinct about somebody is when you've already run their credit and then afterwards if it's like, oh, this is good, but I'm kind of getting a weird feeling about them. Maybe they're not going to be nice people or they're going to be, I don't know, bad tenants in a certain way other than their credit being good. That's the only gut feeling you should be going off of.
I filled up on bread. Now the food came.
The bread was free.
You said you were gonna get the $29 steak.
They don't even have a $29 steak here. What are you talking about?
Here we have a final gift from Alexander, some cotton candy to enjoy.
Some people have problems with vlogging in public. I don't know why, but I don't care. Hey, thanks. Have a good night. Oh, sorry.
This is what 2 glasses of wine will get you. Oh my God, you're so stupid. No, you're stupid, Kevin. Stop. You have had 2 glasses of wine. You're stupid. Oh my effing God. Jesus H. Yeah. Kevin does this kind of stuff even without alcohol, and it constantly stresses me out and worries me, and it's terrible.
Hey, Lauren, what happens if, like, you get a situation where the wife has really good credit, but the husband has pretty shoddy credit?
So when one of the 2 people in the couple situation has good credit and the other does not, I go based off of who has the income. So if the wife has income plus good credit, then you can kind of qualify better in that scenario than the other way around. So if the husband who has very low income has great credit, but the wife who is a breadwinner has bad credit, then that's bad.
They're not financially
Yeah.
responsible.
But the thing is, when one of the two people in this couple scenario has good credit, good income, the other person I like to have as a co-occupant for the tenant. If they're in it equally, just as the other person is, then what happens if they break up, or what if they divorce and they had bad credit and I'm left with the one with bad credit?
Yeah, so in other words, you make sure that the second tenant, even the one with bad credit, also is on the hook for the liability, so that the first tenant, the one with the good credit, is also liable for the tenant's bad credit actions,
Yes.
who stays.
Yes.
So in other words, if one of them left, they're both still liable for the lease unless they both canceled the lease and both left.
And a lot of the times they'll try and tell you, like, oh, well, I make the money, says the husband, and my wife just stays at home with the kids, which just stays at home with the kids. Excuse me, that's a lot. You don't need to run her credit. She's fine. No. You still should, because you should see if she's stealing.
You run both sides.
You run
because-
both sides. You run every side, just to make sure you have good people, honest people, not stealing in your house.
Well, and here's the thing. The fact of the matter is, usually one person in the relationship takes the responsibility for bill paying. And that's the person who matters. So if the person who stays at home is the person responsible for bill paying, then they should be screened as well.
But, I mean, just as an overall generalization, if you have one person that has great credit and another person in the couple scenario that does not, at least the one that has good credit should be your breadwinner, please.
Right, and they're probably not going to try to mess it up. Our Uber's here. Hi, Uber. How you doing, man?
Yes, Kevin.
Oh, sweet. Thanks. Where are you from, man? India?
Yeah. Actually, my dad was citizen,
Okay.
and
Sounded like Grand Theft Auto. T-Swizzle, let's go. That's right, man. Have a good night. You too. Everybody's stealing our quote, don't wait to buy real estate and wait. In fact, somebody told me that on Twitter, and I think that was so cool that they tagged me in that, because I stole that from my father-in-law. Can I hold that?
Not bad.
Oh, okay. Have a good night, man.
you gotta use the 10 huh?
Heck yeah, I do.
I know you.
Do we have a ride?
No, I'm sorry.
How many people have asked you?
Security guards.
Nobody's asked you?
You're the first ones.
I got $20.
We don't know they could. How about 1,000?
Over here.
Right outside of gate C.
We don't want to check it in, though.
No, you have to. You have no choice.
Yeah, okay. This is a wide angle lens. Hook us up. You gotta let us in.
It's not going to be
It is what it says.
No one's going to okay that.
No longer people 5'8".
It's not a zoom, so the problem we're running into is this is a super wide angle,
Right.
and it's super wide. I mean, like, we can't see anything past like 10 feet.
Right.
But because it's longer than 3.5 by like an inch, they're like, oh, you need to go to credentials. And we're like, okay, but we only have tickets, so.
Right.
What do you guys recommend? You think this is legit?
Yeah, it's not longer than credit card.
It's not like a telephoto, you know what I mean? You guys good with that? Oh, thanks, man. Thanks so much. All right. What's a general rule of thumb a landlord should use to determine if somebody actually qualifies for the rental they're applying for?
Keep in mind, it's a very general rule of thumb, and depending on how much debt they have, which is a huge deal, but general rule of thumb is 2.5 times the rent should be their net income.
So somebody might make $10,000 a month and spend $2,500 a month in debts. That $7,500 is worth about 2.5 times $3,000.
That's why it's really, really important to very much analyze their income, their proof of income with their pay stubs or whatnot, and then their credit too. It's just those two
All
are
together.
the key factors of getting a good tenant.
And ironically, usually the people with, well, maybe not ironically, but usually the people with excellent credit don't even apply for properties they can't
they
afford.
know that they can afford
So if somebody's
it.
applying for a $3,000 property per month, they usually
If
make at
somebody-
least 10 a month.
If somebody has an 800 credit score, you know that they're probably making the right amount of income.
For whatever they're
Still
applying
verify,
for.
but you know.
Yeah. Credit tells the story, and people don't believe it. People think it's just another box on the checklist. It's so much. Everything relates back to credit. What about all the payments I've missed?
People that have had iffy credit, where I'm like, oh, you're borderline. Honestly, they tend to not treat the property as well. They still pay their payments. Maybe they have 1 or 2 late fees, and they're still generally good. But then I get the property back, and then I'm like, that kind of makes up, and it lines up with them not having the best credit that I was expecting.
Toad and Hello Kitty right there combined. Oh my gosh. So cool. Come on, that's pretty good. Concert was a little loud, so we're gonna interject right here where we left off. Lauren, you have this trick that basically when the tenant gives you notice to move out, you kind of start working already. How do you do that when the tenant's still living there?
Yes, they give their 30-day notice, and right away I let them know, I acknowledge that they gave their 30-day notice, and I tell them, okay, what days ideally and timeframes work for you for me to show you? I'm never letting them think that they aren't going to have showings happen. And I also let them know, hey, I'll try and work with your schedule as best as possible, but I still will be giving you 24-hour notices to show the property until I get it rented during that 30-day period.
And I think what that really does is it actually kind of sets the standard that, look, this is what will happen, but hey, the sooner we get the property rented, the sooner these showings stop during the 30-day. So if you keep your property really nice and clean, and you could say this to the tenant too, if you keep everything nice and clean and you're really accommodating during that first kind of wave of showings, we might be able to find a qualified tenant really fast, and then the showings will stop for the rest of that 30 days.
Another tip is to let your tenant know that you do proper screening, that you do intensive phone interviews in a sense before even making an appointment to show the house. And also on top of that, let your tenant know, hey, I'm going to be doing a showing between 4 and 5, and I've grouped maybe 4 groups of people. Spread them out a little bit so they don't feel intimidated by other tenants or potential tenants looking at the property. Spread them out in 15-minute increments of the appointment time, and tell your existing tenant that, hey, I have this group of people coming in this hour's time, and hopefully within that group of people, I'll have one person, because I did the intensive phone call interviews, that actually wants to fill out an application and that they qualify, and we rent to them, and that's it. Then I don't have to show the property anymore for the rest of the 30 days that they're at the property.
Tell me a little bit more about these phone call interviews. Like, how do you do those? How do you get people to actually tell you stuff on the phone?
Yeah, so a lot of the time what I have is I have a notepad, or you could have it on your computer, and I have these key questions that I always ask. I ask number one, does your move date line up when I want you to live in that property? That's really important, because I'll ask all these questions, and then at the end I'll be like, so are you okay with renting October 1st? Oh, no, I don't want to rent until April. It's like, well, why are you calling on my house? Number two, I want to know how many people live there. Number three, how many pets, if any, live there. And I want to know I want to know what breed it is. I want to know how much it weighs. A lot of landlords kind of go by this rule where they don't allow bully dogs, which are a lot of different breeds, German Shepherds, Pit Bulls. They'll try and say, oh, I have a lab mix. It's like, well, what is it mixed with? And then usually I can get down to it, it's a pit bull. And I'm not trying to discriminate against pit bulls, but there is an actual bully dog list, and it just, again, I'm not trying to discriminate against any type of breed, but I just want to reduce my liability. That's all it is. The last two would be, I want to know about your job, I want to know how long you've been there, and I want to know how much you make. That's a little bit of a touchy question. Sometimes I can get a feel that they don't want to tell me their income. That's fine. I ask them a lot about their credit. I say, what's your credit? I'm looking for a credit score of 700 or higher. Have you had any negative inquiries? Anything like that. And then, if everything checks out with what they say, and then they say, oh, and I'm a doctor, I'm not going to ask them, okay, what's your gross monthly income? I'm believing that you have good credit, and you probably are telling the truth about your income. If you want to rent to me and fill out an application, at that time I would be a little bit more, okay, show me your pay stubs, I want to know your income.
In other words, you'd set up a showing with them. If everything kind of overall checks out on the phone, you're not like hardcore interviewing them.
Yeah.
But I like the line that you use at the end, where it's kind of like, when you see the property and you decide you want to fill out a rental application, there is a $35 credit screening fee. Do you know how your credit is? I love that line.
And a lot of time they'll, I don't know. And then I try and say, well, have you had any credit cards or anything like that? I don't know. That's always kind of a weird sign.
It's a red flag.
And then if they still just say, I don't know, then you say, you know what, how about this? I'm looking for a 700 credit score or higher. How about you go to creditkarma.com? It's free. Go run your simple credit score and get back to me. Call me if you have that 700 or higher credit score. I'd say about 95% of the time they never call me, because this I don't know crap. Usually people with good credit know they have good credit.
Yeah, and now you didn't have to inconvenience your existing tenant for people that wouldn't qualify anyway. Right. They basically filter themselves out.
Yeah, don't include the I don't knows. Right away when I get the 30-day notice from the existing tenant and I have my first showing, which is usually my first time actually seeing the property in person, I take into consideration at that time, what do I need to coordinate for the second this existing tenant moves out? So usually I'll determine, okay, I need 5 days. And so the new rent date will be 5 days after the existing tenant leaves. During that 5 days, I will coordinate painting, I'll coordinate any little minor fix-up, I'll coordinate any moving of anything or something like that. There's a lot you can do during even 2 days if you want, and you could have a very little gap period for your next tenant.
Great way to minimize vacancy, right?
Oh, totally. A lot of the time I think my vacancy period is maybe 5 to 7 days. And that's because I want to coordinate repairs. It's not because I couldn't just butt it up right up against when the other one moves. It's because I want the next tenant to be happy, have nice paint, have nice things, or the carpet cleaned or whatnot.
It's especially important for when it comes time for rent increase that you are completely anonymous. You are just the property manager, because if you want to rent increase them above what they actually expect, you can always blame it on the owner, and then that way they are not as upset with you, especially.
Remember, the tenant is your customer, so you need to provide that excellent customer service by being the manager. And you know what? You're the manager that always communicates with them. Hey, you know what? I'm going to bat for you.
Yeah.
I'm going to try for you.
I totally understand what you're saying, but I'm just the property manager. I'm kind of like this middleman.
Hey,
I can't
and you
really
know
help
what?
it.
I'm going to keep you updated as well. I'm going to let you know, hey, left a message for the owner, whatever.
And you know what? Even sometimes if they try and negotiate with you, you have to think like, okay, they're great tenants. Like maybe you want to rent increase them $75, and they say that's so much. I really think I should just be 30. Hey, you know what? I was able to negotiate 65. That's what I could do. Even though you are the owner, but then you're the hero. So
that's true. And you communicate very well, which, remember, it's a customer service business.
yes.
Ultimately, tenants' biggest regard is how quickly does the property manager respond to requests. And sometimes there are even luxury requests where a tenant might say, okay, well, if I'm going to get a rent increase, hey, you know what? Could you pay for tree trimming for me?
That literally happened to me.
You know what? Let me try. Sorry.
Well, so
Did that actually happen to you?
Yeah, that did. On a property, all of our properties, we say that the tenant is responsible for their own landscaping. So it came time for rent increase. These were wonderful tenants. I actually give a very small rent increase, and every tenant always feels the need to say something rent increase time, because they just feel like, oh my gosh, they
like
don't
in terms of requests?
Well, they don't understand inflation and how things work, where it just makes sense to have even a little bit of a rent increase, even if that's like $25 to $50. So I think I rent increased them $50, which is very minimal in this appreciating market. And then they wanted to say, well, our palm trees are a big hassle in our backyard. So if there was any way that maybe you could do the yearly maintenance or monthly maintenance, whatever it was, I go, no, sorry, that's in your contract. You are in charge of your own landscaping. That is not a repair where, oh, this pipe is bursting or this is malfunctioning. This is completely in the contract saying you are responsible. You can't put that back on me just because I increased you.
Here's the other thing. If you rent it to somebody for an above market price, you gotta price these properties correctly. If you rent it to somebody for an above market price, they could easily jump ship and get a better deal somewhere else.
Yeah.
But if you rent it to somebody for an under market price or an at market price at the time, the odds are, even come rent increase time, they're not going to find a better deal anywhere else.
That's the thing, is always keep your tenants feeling like they have the best deal, because when it's rent increase time, they're going to be shopping. They're going to be thinking,
every time.
Could I get something better with this rent increase that I just got? And then always have it be where they come back saying, oh my gosh,
I got a good deal.
I am so lucky. Have it be even $20 under rental market. Just always keep them slightly below the good tenants, because they are worth keeping.
The great tenants are worth keeping, and you know what? Turnover is expensive.
It is. It is very expensive. I know people can get caught up in the greed of thinking, oh, the market's appreciating so much. If you have a good tenant, you have to play a balancing game. You have to know, I shouldn't increase them too much because I want them to be happy when they go shopping.
Look, market could be $3,000 if you're at $2,950. Shut up and be happy.
Yeah, in the big scheme of things, you got a good tenant taking care of your property.
It's $600 a year, and honestly, if the tenant moves, you're probably spending $2,000 or $3,000 just to touch it up.
Yes, yeah. There's so much work in every turnover situation.
So we've already touched on how a good quality tenant is generally going to look for a good quality property. That is, the better quality the tenant you're looking for, you need to have a better quality property in terms of renovation, location, and everything else related to it, and the service the manager gives. Low quality tenant, usually going to be stuck in an apartment building. Higher quality tenant oftentimes can rent and demand to rent in an area that appeals to a lot of homeowners.
And just, again, as a disclosure, all of these things, you qualify a tenant with the credit and income and everything, they could still turn on you. They could still be terrible tenants. Things could happen. But this is just to increase the odds of you having a good time with your tenant and your property. I had one time where a tenant gave me their 30-day notice, and their house that they lived in, my property, was so full of clutter that I actually made the decision to take it off the market during that 30-day in between period where I usually get a place rented very quickly, because I was showing it and people couldn't get past all of the clutter. So that would be a case where it's just like, oh crap, this isn't working for me. I will take it off the market. Once it was completely vacant, I rented it within 3 days because it was just terrible. So yeah, things can happen, and they actually kind of destroyed my carpet too. But they had good credit, so you just don't always know. So yeah, that's the downside and the risk factor you have to take when you have a property that you own and you have a tenant in it. But yeah, they ruined that carpet, and that was definitely taken out of their security deposit.
Now, we weren't super thorough in this video. There's going to be a whole lot more information on that, but what we wanted to do was open it up for sort of a Q&A. So if you have any questions, ask away, and Lauren says she'll comment on every single comment. She didn't say that, but you had told me once there was a secret about the most recent rental reference not being the best to use.
Yeah. So the funny thing is if you already use any rental references, which I don't really use that often anymore, but don't use the most recent rental reference, the one they're currently living in, because if they're a bad tenant, guess what? That landlord wants to get rid of them. Like, please,
That's
they're
a great tenant.
You know what? You should have them as tenants, please.
You'll love them.
Yeah, get them out of my house.
You're not recording this, right? No, not being recorded at all. They're great.
Super
You'll
good.
love them.
And what was your name?